everybody, Lord Tremendous here, and I got another book review for you. Today, it's The Crimson Knight. I know it actually says Crimson Knight, but the book, like the title page, actually says The Crimson Knight. So that is just one of the first indications that maybe something was going to be off about this one. However, I did read it, and it's actually got a little bit of a story about how close I came to not reading this book. So the first thing I did when I decided on this book, first of all, it was published February 1st of 2019, and it's about 193 pages, give or take. So I figured it'd be a quick read, and it is definitely like a fantasy-based novel, swords and dragons, stuff like that, dungeons, magic. There's half elves, there's ogres, all that good stuff in there. And when I first got the book, I got it in audiobook format because honestly, it's just easier for me to listen when I'm driving. And I got maybe 3 or 4 chapters into it when I just couldn't listen to it anymore. The narrator of the audiobook talked. He had this weird speech pattern where everything that he said or everything that he would stop saying at the end of every sentence or after every pause would do this weird thing where he was asking a question, and he would also misspell or mispronounce words. Like instead of triad, it was triad. Instead of tree, it was tray. And it was really jarring, and they would take really weird pauses in the middle of a descriptive sentence, which really didn't make any sense whatsoever. Are you following me here? So after about 3 or 4 chapters of putting up with that, I couldn't do it anymore. I turned off the audio book, deleted it off my device, and I realized that it is available on Kindle Unlimited. So since I have that subscription, I downloaded it and I finished it in an afternoon. It's like I said, it's just under 200 pages long, so it's not a long read, and it is a quick story. It really is, but it's basically about this main character, Kitya, Kitya, and she is vile. I don't mind telling you. She is painfully vile. She's a young human female, noble born, who doesn't like the fact that she's a noble. She ran away from home because of some horrible trauma, and it is a horrible thing that happens to her. And she ends up getting found by a very powerful elf. She's near death. They ended up bringing her back. And over a few years, they teach her to be an incredible warrior. And they lead you to believe that she's this fiercely independent woman, fierce monger thing. And she's supposed to be a badass. And the author sometimes has that grasp of the character. And other times, she's a incompetent, selfish, just brat. And it's very, very difficult to like her at all. I found myself struggling to get through the book, but I started it. I wanted to finish it, and it was difficult. It was very difficult to do. There is a lot of grammar, editing, outline, just the format of how it was on the ebook and everything like that. They did not proofread this book at all. There's a lot of words that are misspelled. There are some graphic sex scenes, which I'm not opposed of or anything like that. Honestly, I think this author would be decent, if not very good, at romance novels and stuff like that, which I believe she does have some out. This is by B.K. Griffin, in case you couldn't tell by the picture. And she does have some romance novels. I will not be reading them because I don't like romance, but the descriptions of the sex scene and stuff, while comical in some ways, they were good, and they did have the desired effect. So I think she would be good at romance novels, but fantasy, I don't believe she's very good at all. I'll get to that. But yeah, during one of the more prominent sex scenes in the book, she means to use the word moist, and instead describes the feeling that the main character has as most, which has quickly become one of my immature but joyous ways to describe a female's arousal. Oh, are you most? I'm sorry. It's just, it happens more often than not. The spell checking and everything is so bad. one of the elven names is continuously misspelled. It goes from Chrysalis to Chrysalis, and that's not the only time. There is a lizard man individual called Timon, Timan, and it is also spelled Temaine. There's no explanation for this in the book. I think maybe she had one spelling for it at the beginning, and halfway through the writing or somewhere during the process, she changed the name and could not be bothered to hit Control F to fix it all. The lazy writing, I mean, I'm all for grammar mistakes. I totally understand there's going to be spelling and some spelling and grammar and outline mistakes in a self-published book, especially one that wasn't hit up by an author, but this one abused the privilege and I couldn't overlook it. It was awful, really, really awful. At one point, I found a pair of quotation marks right next to each other and then the spoken sentence. A lot of times, apostrophes are used instead of quotation marks, and it was painful. There's a lot of times where I almost put the book down and just said, "Screw it, I'm not doing this review." But I did. I wanted to be an integrity-based review, and so I did. But anyway, the main character ends up having to. She's home for a visit because although she hates her family and hates being near her family, she visits them often because she also loves them, which is a lot of convoluted, I guess, personality quirks of this bipolar character. And she's there, and while she's there, there's a tournament going on, so there's knights from all over the realm fighting for honor and glory, which she can't stand, yet she herself is a warrior that fights for glory. I don't know. I don't know what she really fights for. But during the tournament, she kind of gets introduced to the love interest of the book. She does end up having a relationship with him later on during their travels because she does meet up with him. But anyway, during the tournament, when the tournament's over, her younger sister gets deflowered by the story's bad guy. Her sister, of course, flips out, wants to kill this guy because apparently, they have a past, and the guy gets away, and that's really the story. She's going after him to take him out, and he is fleeing to go and take up safe haven at his cousin's house, or at his cousin's castle anyway, which is like a month's travel away. And yet somehow, not only does he get way, way ahead of all of them and gets to the castle safely, he also is able to kidnap a bunch of young girls on his way to do horrible things to when he gets to the castle. I know. So anyway, during their travels to go after this guy, she and her ally, this mage or whatever, are able to contact a bunch of their old friends who, of course, join in to put their life in danger because this guy did some horrible things to her little sister. And during that time, they call in all sorts of favors to people that you have no idea. There's dwarves, there's a centaur, which you hear about the centaur, and then you don't hear about the centaur anymore. He shows up just long enough to people go, "Oh, man, horsey!" And then he leaves. He's gone. There's also a lizard man guy and a weasel-faced guy who are supposedly allies of theirs, but they have some real devious plans that they plan on enacting later on, which I'll get to that in the spoiler section of this. And then, of course, after amassing a huge army to go after this guy, they are able to, of course, storm the bad guy's castle, capture the bad guy, and bring him back to justice. It is very convenient. It is basically like playing a video game on easy mode, a bad video game on easy mode with cheat codes enabled. Everybody survives that's supposed to survive. And they make it back for one of the worst, most jarring end twists to a story I've read in a long time. So all in all, I cannot recommend this book. I'm sorry. It is really bad. It's going to get 1 star out of 5 from me. I really, really didn't like it. I tried hard to find some part of the book that I liked. The story it jumps all over the place. It's really, really bad. And the main character is impossible to like. And just what this author does to the other characters is just disgusting. I don't even mind telling you. So, 1 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait to get into the spoiler side of this book. If you do choose to, read this book or give it a shot, I'm not going to fault you for it by all means. It's a short read. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I got it on audiobook for like $10 and change, but that's not a big deal. You could get it with a credit if it is a little pricier, but not compared to most audiobooks. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I was able to read it in a few hours on a Sunday afternoon. It didn't take long, and I mean, I read it so you don't have to, but if you still feel like it, go right ahead. But anyway, I'm going to get into the spoilers now. I'm going to do my countdown and, yeah, just talk all about, give specific examples of why I didn't like this book. So if you don't want spoilers, hey, I hope you appreciated the spoiler-free-ish section of this review. And if not, hey, stick around for the spoilers because, man, am I going to get into it. All right, I assume that you stuck around for this. So, yeah. So, Kitya, or whatever this idiot's name is a bona fide brat. Like, literally, all I wanted to do since, like, the first couple of chapters meeting this chick is knock her teeth out of her head. What a self-entitled brat. So, you find out in the book that she's the noble-born daughter of this very wealthy and powerful lord. Okay, now remember that comes into play later. When she was young, like 12 to like 11 to 13, somewhere in there, she met this guy Baron, who was a knight, and he's a sleazy scumbag type of guy. They exist, 100% believable bad guy, absolutely. He rapes her. You don't get a whole lot of detail about what happens. Apparently, he's some sort of silver-tongued devil, and he rapes her. Being a noble-born lady, that is a no-go. Her mom is a piece of garbage. The queen or lady of this house treats her pretty horrible about it. It's your fault, yada, yada, yada. She runs away from home because she can't live like that anymore, and as she gets away from the home, apparently nobody was able to find her. I don't know if her father sent people after her or not, but it kind of alludes to it because she's found by elves, and instead of just leaving the weird human child to die, they take her back because of compassion, nurse her back to health, and instead of returning her to her father, the elf healer, shaman, wizard dude that takes her under his wing just sends a note back to her father saying, we found your daughter, but we're going to hold on to her for a while because we need a pet. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really explain that. Compassion is what they say, but I don't understand that fully. But the father's fine with that. Yeah, cool. Keep my recently raped daughter and do what you will with her, elf lord. And they actually become friends, according to the book, and they send letters back. They become pen pals, basically, which is, again, really weird to me. But, whatever. Sure, that's not something that's difficult for me to deal with. So okay, sure. The noble-born father, who's actually apparently a nice guy who cares about his family, has no problem with his, 11 to 13-year-old just recently raped daughter who ran away from home, sticking around with the elves for a while, for a few years, while they teach her how to be a woman warrior thing. And they do. That's what happens. She becomes some sort of woman warrior that obviously avoids her home because her mother's a bit of a scumbag. And she does. The author does describe the mother as a scumbag. She doesn't make any apologies for her. And she comes home when she wants to feel like a noble lady again. And that's where the story kind of picks up. She comes home. There's a joust going on. She's got her wizard buddy with her, who's a very powerful wizard of the land. And she kind of mocks the joust and the fighting and everything that's happening, even though she herself is a warrior. She thinks that it's all foolish. Yet when she goes to the joust and she sees one of the knights that are fighting in the final against the bad guy who raped her earlier, she offers her favor to him. And she definitely has feelings towards him. The bad guy knight, who the whole family knows did this thing to her daughter, is there, and nobody's trying to kill him. And then the youngest daughter of the same family that the main character is from offers her favor to this known rapist, and nobody bats an eye. Nobody has a problem with it, except for the main character. She's furious about it, understandably. They get into a joust. Of course, the bad guy gets dethroned and knocked out cold. The youngest daughter is beside herself with grief because the silver-tongued devil she has a huge crush on, because apparently, although everyone else in the kingdom knows about Kitya's been deflowered by this guy against her will, they're still like, yeah, but he's such a smooth talker. How could you be upset? Yes, I'll let my youngest daughter hang out with him unsupervised. Seems like a good idea. So that's what happens. Later on, after the joust is all over, the main character's walking around. They go to the secluded, she's over in the secluded area because plot, and of course she finds her sister being raped by this guy because, hey, when in Rome, right? So she, of course, understandably snaps, takes a sword, because she's walking around with the other knight that she gave her favor to earlier. She takes his sword off of him, no problem, and it has the sword to the rapist's neck and gets distracted by her little sister screaming, "No, don't kill him," which leads me to wonder why. Why would she say that? But anyway, she does, because the author needed a distraction for her, just long enough for the bad guy to knock the sword away from this trained warrior and then scurry underneath some bushes and get away. That's what it took to get away from her. He scurried under some bushes and ran, and nobody was able to catch him. Nobody had a clue. Nobody cared. So the main character, infuriated, gets her horse, gets her gear, or not her gear, keeps the knight's sword, gets her horse, goes after this guy with her love interest knight at her side because he wants to marry her. He's decided that since she's attractive and stuff, he's going to marry her, which, again, I don't have a huge problem with that because I could totally see it happening between nobles. So she is on the fence about whether or not she likes him. So then they go charging after this guy on the horse. He does have a head start because he didn't stop, apparently, to get anything other than his horse. So he jumped on his horse, took off, and he's got such a lead on him that she chases them. They, into the morning, to the point where she's getting ready to pass out. And she stops, falls to sleep on the grass with her panther cat, a cat or whatever, next to her name's Shadow. Yes, she has a panther, apparently. It doesn't explain exactly why or anything, but apparently at some point she came home and got a panther cat. Maybe when she ran away. It does mention she had it as a kitten when she was younger, but whatever. She's got a panther cat. Why not? Cat lady's got a cat. So the night love interest shows up, catches up to her as she's sleeping, and although she's, all dead set about killing this bad guy, she's like, yeah, sure, you can come with me, why not? My mage buddy will be catching up to me later once he's got some of our allies with him, because, that's what people do when they're heroes. They wait to be called on by main characters. So they continue to chase after this guy until they meet up with some of their buddies who somehow catch up to them. Like, the mage was back at the castle that she took off from, but he not only is able to stop and pick up all of their supplies and their stuff, but he's able to catch up to them no problem. And that's another thing. The love interest knight has her gear stopped, got her father's permission to go after her, and was able to catch up to her no problem, not knowing exactly where she was going, and tosses all of her gear to her, and so she's all like, "Oh, cool, thanks. You can ride with me now," because convenience is convenient. They continue to go after this guy as a group who have no problem catching up to each other, but can't seem to catch up to the antagonist for whatever reason. They get to this area called Last Chance. It takes them a little while, like a couple of weeks or something like that, to get to this place called Last Chance. And Last Chance is your typical horrible ghetto area. Like, they literally say to them, everybody keep your nobility hidden, because these people will literally mug you for the coin in your purse if they think that you have any. So you got to try to keep everything, low key. And it's a horrible place. It's literally described as having raw sewage in the streets. There's unwashed masses everywhere. It's horrible, horrible place. And these people come in clean with arms and armor, but they don't get touched. They get accosted a little bit verbally, but that's as far as it goes. By the way, during the travel to Last Chance, The main character and the love interest have had sex because of fairy magic. They got super horny because of it. And then later on, they get attacked by bandits who are so inept. Like I said, it's like playing a bad video game on easy mode with cheat codes enabled. They're able to take out these 15 or so, like they're way outnumbered, but they're so skilled in combat that they just take out all these bandits no problem, sending most of them running away. They punch one of the bandit leaders in the face, and that just everyone else runs away. Nobody has bows and arrows, by the way, because that would just be ridiculous. Not even a rock to throw. So yeah, like I said, there's absolutely no peril for these people whatsoever. So anyway, they get to Last Chance. They're at this ghetto fabulous place. They make their way through the most wretched part of the world you could possibly think of being in. Basically, an outdoor sewer with shacks attached to it until they reach their elven allies' home, which, by comparison to these shacks, is a fucking mansion, okay? Multiple homes, lots of weapons, armor, and food inside, and the only thing keeping people out are some traps and some wards. Are you trying to tell me that these people didn't, like, throw boulders or Molotov cocktails or anything in here to set these traps off, or even tricked other people like that were with them in there to go after, like throw a copper, in there so they set off the wards so they could rob this place blind? No, they just leave it alone. They leave it alone completely because apparently the elf lived there at some point. It's just the most ridiculous convenience I've ever seen. So they literally stay there for like 3 days, 3 or 4 days, while they plot, plan, and wait for more people to show up. And by more people, a lizardman noble, yep, I said it, a lizardman noble and his weasel-faced companion are there, and they start plotting to not only kidnap and rape the main character, but the lizard man wants to marry her so that he can inherit the dowry that her father is offering for her hand in marriage. Yeah, they plot about this openly in front of everyone who doesn't ever seem to hear them until later. One person does hear it in the party and says nothing. Nothing. This is literally like you going to a restaurant with a bunch of coworkers, acquaintances and stuff like that, so you can do a project. And while you're sitting there, there's two guys sitting next to you going, I'm going to kidnap, rape, and force that bitch to marry me that's in charge of all this. And you don't say a word. But again, convenience is convenient. So they go through all these planning. 3 or 4 days goes by. They're trying to catch up to this bad guy. And no, we got 3, 4 days to just kick back and wait. She ends up sleeping with the love interest again because, not fairy magic this time. She just had a bath. That's literally it. Yeah. So, a centaur shows up. Some dwarves show up. Everybody has no problem getting through this, ghetto place that apparently everybody will murder you for the shoes on your feet. But the centaur shows up, and the centaur's backstory is very interesting. He when he was a foal, when he was a baby, he was out playing in a field, and he ran into some wild magic. And the wild magic enchanted his feet so that they don't make any sound anymore, which is really interesting. I thought that was cool until it is explained that the centaur, for some reason, is immune to all magical effects. Yeah, you heard that right. So the centaur, whose feet are enchanted by wild magic to be completely silent for the rest of his life, is also immune to all magical effects. Yeah, that's as far as the explanation got in the book as well. So, also, for the centaur, tragic backstory time. Because of his immunity to magic and the fact that his hooves don't make any sound, he's been banished from the centaur clan, and he can never have a family or anything like that. So he's an outsider. Yeah, I don't fucking get it either. But don't worry, the centaur plays such a minor role that it doesn't matter. In fact, the centaur is the one that hears the lizard man and the weasel-faced guy planning to kidnap, rape, and force the main character into some sort of slavery, sexual slavery or whatever, and never says anything. So, gotta be honest with you, the centaur's kind of a dick. He kind of deserves to be an outcast. Just don't understand it. So finally, after 3 or 4 days goes by, they all get together and decide now we have to get going. But before they get going, I think the author realized that sieging a castle with like 8 to 10 people just isn't going to work out. So all of a sudden, these ghetto people in this town of Last Chance come to the house humbly, by the way. Before they were swearing at him and threatening to kill him. Now they come to him humbly and they're like, "We heard y'all were going to siege the castle, and we'd like to come with and sacrifice our lives to help you do it, because as that scumbag noble came through our town, he kidnapped a bunch of our sisters and daughters. And we didn't do shit about it at the time, but now it's been eating at us for a week, and we think we should probably come with you because we hear, according to the author, you need a whole bunch of extra dead bodies to throw at this castle. Is that cool?" And they're like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And they're like, "Oh, and there's another town that you're not going to come anywhere close to, but we sent a cell phone message over to them, and they're going to join too, because apparently on their way to the castle, they kidnapped a bunch of girls from there as well for sexual horrible things." And everyone's just like, "Wow, that's super useful. Thanks, guys." And they all high five, and there's a moment where they're all up in the air cheering. So after that, the huge amount of convenience, they start walking along, and they hire on some ogres, like a dozen ogres, that this giant friend of the mages sends to them. So the ogres show up, and they're actually pretty accurate. They're just big buffoons that like to smash stuff. They keep going until they make it to a set of mines that are conveniently along the way, that the two dwarves were able to get 50 dwarves to show up. I shit you not. It literally says 10 rows, 5 dwarves deep. So 10 by 5 is 50. I mean, I'm not super great at math, but 50 dwarves decide, although this human noble that's sitting in his castle has done nothing to us, and as far as we know, on the word of a young human, he raped another young human, which no dwarf that didn't know you would give a flying poop about. They go, yep, we're going to kill every single person in that castle because of it, on the word of this human that we don't know. And, conveniently enough, they all happen to be berserker explosive experts. Like I said, convenience has to convenient. So they head to this guy's castle. They get about 2 or 3 leagues away from it when they call a halt. That's when hundreds, like 200 or 300 human scumbags from that Last Chance town and that other town that is so briefly mentioned it's not even worth talking about, show up. I mean, these are farmers, these are poor people, these are people that literally were described as shit-caked, soiled despots that barely have enough food to make it through the day. They show up fully armed and armored with, I shit you not, 3 dozen archers. And remember that, because that's going to come and play in a minute, because wow, these archers are amazing. So anyway, all these peasants show up. They don't have any pitchforks. It literally says the main character was thrilled that they didn't have any pitchforks. They have swords, they have armor, they have horses, they have pole arms. These starving, desperate, friggin' scumbags have weapons and armor that they would have sold in a heartbeat to get food. But never you mind that. Never mind the logistics of feeding or transporting an army of that size. They just fucking show up. Not only do they show up, but they catch up to the people that had days advance ride against them. It's not like they waited for these people to show up. They just showed up. So after all that convenience, which I literally choked on, the Weasel guy, don't forget about the Weasel guy and the Lizard Man guy, because they both are still plotting out in the open in front of everybody to kidnap, rape, and subject this woman until she forcefully marries the lizard dude. Like, this is a huge plot line that's supposed to happen. They have to deal with that because the lizard guy is literally planning on killing her love interest, killing her panther cat, and escaping with her until they beat her into submission. I mean, this is constantly hit upon in this book, in this story. It's ridiculous how many times it goes back. Just wait, I'm going to get to that. So after they stop 2 leagues away, they make their way. 2 days later, they get to the bad guy castle, right? and they're sitting outside the castle, and it says they know how far the archers can reach of this castle, right? This well armed and armored fortress castle that knows they're coming are waiting for these guys to get there, and they're like, all right, so this is where their archers can hit on the walls, which are like 10 to 12 feet tall. A bunch of guards are up there and they see him, and the main character shouts, we're here for the bad guy that raped my sister. And the guards, they wave to acknowledge that they can hear her. And she goes, if you don't, return him, we'll kill everybody in there. Get your asses out here. Send him out here right now. So after she runs her mouth at them for a little while longer, of course, the archers, not knowing their own range and their own castle at the walls that they're literally in charge of guarding, they fire a volley of arrows that come up per the book 1 foot shy of her location. Like the arrows all slam into the ground a foot away from her. Her horse rears up a little bit defiantly, and that's it. So not only have these trained guards now shown them where the range of their archers are for no fucking reason, the unelevated peasant bowmen step up, fire a volley of arrows that not only reach the guards, but kill a bunch of them. The peasant archers fire 4 volleys. 4 volleys of arrows at these people before the guards finally fall back off the wall, right? So the elevated archers with actual, well-maintained bows, stuff like that, could not get the range of these desperate fucking peasants with hunting bows. But the peasants with their hunting bows not only were able to fire 4 volleys into these guards, killing a bunch of them, but they were able to make them retreat off the wall. Wow. So, okay, sure. We'll say they have the best archers on the planet. Super convenience has to be super convenient. So once the guards have all retreated off the wall because of the horrible barrage of, all these amazing peasant archers, which I really don't understand why they're starving and desperate if they have that kind of skill, the 12 ogres, go charging into the wall. This is a stone wall. It's very described as being, formidable and intimidating and imposing. The 12 ogres charging across the field, knock it down in the first couple of rams, no problem. There's a huge hole that's rented up in there, not a problem at all. They lose 1 ogre in their charge across the field. It doesn't really say how, because the guards have all fallen back, but whatever, sure. Maybe a couple stuck around, and one of them, once they were in range, was able to throw his bow and kill the guy. I'm not really sure. But 1 ogre dies. But that's it. Only one. 400-yard charge across an open ground, and 1 ogre dies. Awesome. Makes you wonder why the ogres didn't bother to just take out every castle, since it's that fucking easy. So anyway, with the wall breached by the 11 ogres now, the rest of the army that they have now, the army of convenience, we'll call it, they charge across the plains themselves, losing no one in their charge because apparently everything was focused on that 1 dead ogre. They go charging across the castle, and the mage that's with them, the elven mage, which is a buddy of the main character, uses some sort of invisible hand push spell that just blows the fucking doors off their hinges. So the gate is breached, the wall is breached, and the dwarves, who with the explosives, who were able to get into a mine that was conveniently located underneath the castle, which was also their dungeons, which apparently they don't defend their dungeons or the known weakness of the mines whatsoever. They got in there and they start setting off their explosives, which of course make more holes in the wall. So there's 3 big holes in the wall that they're all able to get into, no problem. Here's where the guards show back up. The guards show back up, and they are cut down like they might as well not even be there. I'm not even sure they were guards. I think they might have been like grade schoolers that just happened to be in the wrong colored clothing at the time, because they just kill everybody. The main character walks through them like they're not even there. She is a warrior. She's a young teenage woman, I'd say 18, 19 years old at this point, with very little battle experience that they describe, but she is a amazing warrior. We'll call her a savant, sure. But she walks through all these warriors, all these trained guards, like they're nothing. I mean, just nothing. She is perfectly fine. And so they get into the castle literally without almost any resistance. They cut through it. Her cat, her panther cat, is able to smell where the bad guy is, no problem, and leads her to where he's at. They get across the castle and they encounter very little resistance at that. Well, she encounters very little resistance. There's fighting all over the place. The dwarves are down in the foundation, just blowing up everything now. The whole castle's rocking. And it says that in the story. They get through and she gets to the guy saving children, sending the dwarves and everything to ferry the children out as she finds them, because there's pockets of them everywhere in this castle, lots of them. They get him out of there. She finds the bad guy, who, although he knows she's coming, although the guards must have gone to tell him they were coming, and this guy is a knight, by the way. He is a trained fighting knight who made it to the finals in the joust. So it's not like he's, some sort of doughy fucking noble. He is a trained knight that is quite good at what he does. Instead of getting up there to fight or anything of the sort, she finds him no problem downstairs in his weird harem dungeon with 3 girls that he kidnapped from one of these towns conveniently, chained to the bed, and he's butt naked doing things to him. Of course, the panther cat jumps on him, and he turns into a sniveling child. He screams a lot, he cries, he pisses himself. She says her weird monotone, or monologuing thing where, we finally got you. And that's it. They capture him. Her love interest guy shows up, and he punches him in the face with a mailed hand, which is enough to get him to basically just be captured. And they get out of there. The place starts blowing up. Her panther cat and her horse get burned a little bit, but she hurts her arm, it says, but it's clearly not that big of a deal. They get the rest of the way out, saving women and children as often as they can, and when they get out of the castle, it collapses under the explosions finally, because convenience has to be convenient, and they leave victorious. Nobody died. Their losses were 0. With the exception, now I need you to sit down for this if you're not already. So remember that huge plot line I was talking about with the Lizardman guy and the Weaselface guy that had been plotting to kidnap, rape, and force marriage with the main character? Off scene, her elf buddy, the female fighter with the mansion in Last Chance, the ghetto town, during the fighting, the Lizardman and the Weaselface guy tried to attack her from behind, and she killed them both. It's like a sentence or two in the story. Yeah, Lizard guy and Weaselface guy are both dead because they tried to attack me with some of the bad guy's men, unexplained, and so I had to dispatch all of them myself. I mean, thank God for cheat codes, because otherwise this book might have actually been good. I don't know what to tell you. That's it. They're dead. That whole big plot line, that whole big side thing that looked like it was going to be super interesting. Nope. Handled in a couple of sentences at the very end. I shit you not. So they make their way back. They get done. They're walking, get ready to walk back to Last Chance to stay at the Elven chick's mansion in the ghetto. When they go, hey, is all that blood on you yours or somebody else's? And the main character goes, what blood? And passes out. Apparently she took a whole bunch of damage that didn't affect her until after the battle, because again, convenience has to be convenient. So she is literally kept asleep for a month while they travel back to the mansion, where a halfling healer was available that could not only fix her wounds, because she got all cut up and dislocated her shoulder and broke her wrist and got all sorts of wounds that got infected on their week-long journey back to Last Chance, by the way. The halfling healer that is in this poverty-stricken ghetto place, which, again, not the biggest stretch of my imagination given everything that's happened in this story, she's able to just fix everything, no problem, as the girl just sleeps through it all. No, she wakes up a couple of times delirious, but other than that, no issues whatsoever. And this halfling healer fixes her up, no problem. Not even a little bit of inconvenience. What? Infections? When have those ever killed anybody in the Dark Ages? I mean, honestly, this halfling healer is doing her God's work, let me tell you, because damn, no sweat. Oh, an infection that set in for days? Psh, bippity boppity boo, you're good to go. Broken wrist that hasn't been set right and a dislocated shoulder? Snap of my fingers, baby. Thanos isn't this powerful. So yeah, that she's all healed up, no problem. They've got the bad guy. They make their trek back home. Now, remember earlier when I said that the elf guy that found her and her father, the powerful lord, are buddies? Well, her mage elf buddy is also friends with her father, and it literally says in the book that they are staying in contact through these birds that he's sending back and forth, right? So the main character's father has been in contact, has been communicating regularly with the elf mage ally of hers that has been with her the entire time. Put a pin in that. It's going to be important in a minute. They get all the way back to her castle, her father's land and everything like that. And they show up. And, there's been some back and forth with her love interest. Do I want him? Do I not want him? A lot of talk about, gosh, I hate being a noble when it's inconvenient because I might have to get married and be a lady, but my freedom, but I do want him, blah, blah, blah. Going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's really irritating, but okay, sure, maybe it's just drama for drama's sake. They get back to her father's castle. Her love interest is a knight of a different order. He does not live here. It's not her father's order or anything like that. He was only there for the jousting tournament. As they get there, all the townspeople are cheering her, and of course, in a big ticker tape parade. Then they see the bad guy, and boo, hiss, and the vegetables all get thrown at them, and a whole bunch of curses, and yada, yada, yada. But as they're coming through the crowd, a beautiful woman shrieks with happiness to see her love interest, this knight from the jousting thing, who does not live there, by the way. His wife is there. And he's thrilled to see her, and he picks her up and, picks her up on the horse that he's with and passionately kisses her. And the main character sees the ring on her finger and knows that her love interest has been married this whole time. And even though he said he wanted to marry her and all that other stuff, nope, this guy's wife has been waiting at this castle for him for well over a month, possibly 2 months, while he was off dickering and doing other things. Wow. You would think that a well-known knight like this guy of the Crimson Order, and of the Crimson Ravens, which, yeah, the book is named, what was that again? The Crimson Knight? Yeah, okay. This guy is the only crimson thing that is mentioned throughout the entire book. She's not. She's not even mentioned as red. I think she wears a burgundy dress at some point, and that's it. So I have no idea where the title came from. But anyway, that happens. So the love interest, in order to just not make him a love interest anymore, suddenly he's married. This whole time, nobody knew that this noble guy was married, whatever. And so, yeah, she's all furious and upset about that. Gets up to her father and her sisters and her brothers and everything like that, and goes, "Father, I have brought the bad guy for your judgment." And everybody starts crying. And she's like, "What's going on? Where's my youngest sister?" And they go, her brother comes up to her and goes, "A week after you left." They've been gone for 2 months. "A week after you left to go get him, your sister couldn't handle the fact that she was deflowered like that and everything and killed herself. She's been dead since a week after you, 7 days after you left, she offed herself." Horrible, tragic. Nobody told her. Her father and her ally elf buddy, the mage, have been communicating this whole time. It literally says it in the story. Nobody told her shit. The elf guy didn't tell her. The father either didn't tell the elf mage or the elf mage didn't tell her, so that we could have this weird twist at the end, this double twist ending. It's like the author had no idea what to do at the end of the book. It's so horrible that it was actually offensive. So the main character understandably snaps, loses her temper, pulls her sword, and cuts the bad guy's head clean off in front of God and everybody. And then, not stopped by anyone because, again, convenience has to be convenient, she jumps on her horse and takes off out of the castle. Just gotta get away from everyone forever. And then the book says, "The end." And then, really presumptuously, it says, ... or is it? Yeah, I puked a little too. So that's the Crimson Knight. Number one, I don't know who the fuck the Crimson Knight is unless it's the main love interest, which was he was a Crimson Raven, okay, who was a knight. She's not a knight. She's not anything Crimson. Like I said, the only thing that happened, she wore a burgundy dress once. That's it. Other than that, she's in black leather the entire time. So who the fuck is the Crimson Knight, and why is the book named that? It's like naming the Harry Potter book, the Wizard's Hat. What? I mean, I guess that would actually make more sense. I don't even know where to go with that title. The whole book is this discombobulated mess. The only part of it that could pass for good were the romance side, and that's the descriptive sex scenes that she put in there. And there was two or three, and those were the only ones that she seemed to have any clue what she was doing. So other than that, the rest of it is just garbage. It is horrible. And I'm sorry, the whole thing really disgusted me from start to finish. It was difficult to get through. And I'm being generous by giving it 1 star out of 5. I absolutely hated this story. The main character is unlikable. The plot is super convenient. Every obstacle that's thrown into him is easily overcome. Almost like I said, it's like playing a bad video game with the cheat codes on easy mode. It's painful. There's no peril whatsoever. Everyone lives. Everyone lives. Everyone is fine. Even when she's mortally wounded with infections that have set in, some off-screen fucking healer shows up and is able to heal her no problem. Like it's nothing. It's like, why do people die in this world when ghetto healers are able to fix shit like this? No problem. Just drives me insane. The convenience and the garbage plot. The love interest after all this time, a well-known knight in the country, has a wife nobody knew about. Really? You had hundreds of people with you that knew who this guy was and nobody knew he was married? Eat shit and die. I'm sorry. That's just garbage. I'm mad. I'm mad. This book was that bad. It actually made me mad. So, yeah, 1 out of 5 stars. Cannot tell you to just stay away from it more. I mean, if you really want to waste a few hours to read it, that's fine. Like I said, it's just under 200 pages. Nobody's going to fault you for it, but you could spend your time reading something better. It was really, really bad. Just categorically. Spelling, editing, formatting, another thing that really bothered me about it is the main character has like 4 brothers and sisters, a mother, five or 6, like a ton. And her name is Kitya. The main character is Kitya, Kitya. Her sister is Kitma, Kitma. Her brothers are like Kitna and Kitya or Kitva or something. Everything is Kit something or something with a K. Her mother's name is Keela. You have it, and it's all thrown at you so early on in the book that you have no idea who they're talking about after a couple of times. You have to go back and try to remember. I did anyway. Maybe you guys are smarter than me. That's totally a possibility. I'm not the brightest bulb, but it was painful. It's like, please have a little bit more creativity than naming everybody the same thing, Kit something. That drives me crazy. It's such lazy writing. So, yeah, just honestly, the advice I have for this book is to avoid it at all costs. Maybe look into her romance novels. I think this woman would be a wonderful romance writer. I'm not a huge romance fan at all, to be perfectly honest with you, but I think she has some romance novels out you could check out. That would probably be a safe bet. But stay away from this story like the plague, because it really is a plague. Was not enjoyable. Did not like it. 1 star out of 5. If you disagree, please feel free to put it in the comment section. I would love to have an opposing a point of view on this one to try to correct me on how I feel about it. I'm always open to be corrected. Please feel free. But yep, that's going to do it for this one, guys and gals. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, feel free to put any comments, questions, concerns, or complaints in the comment section below. I'd love to have a debate, a discussion, whatever you want to call it, an argument about it. That's part of the reason that I do this review. And if you do decide to read it, or you already have, let me know what you think. I did leave a review for it on there that was just as scathing, because if my book was that bad, or it had some sections in it that was that bad, I'd want people to throw it in my face so that I can improve. I know this one seemed harsh. I know it was rough, but the story deserved it. And like I said, I would expect anyone else in this unit to do the same for me. But yep, that's going to do it for this one. And I appreciate you guys listening. And as always, thanks.